Hello Dino people! In all these years I've been making ARK videos and I've been playing ARK and I never made a proper beginner's guide. And we're changing that now because there's still a lot of new players coming into ARK who don't know nothing about the game and who don't know how to get started. So I'll explain the first steps to you, what to do when you get into the game so you do not give up in frustration. Server choice and game modes. You have various options for playing ARK. There are different types of servers and game modes, some of which differ greatly. So before you start, you should consider which game mode you will prefer. Official servers versus unofficial servers. There are two different types of servers. One is the official server, which is run by the developers, and the other one is the unofficial server, which is run by players. Both have their advantages and disadvantages. With official servers, you do not have to pay anything and you can join directly. Crossplay is possible under certain conditions. There is a large community that plays on these servers, all maps are available, and you can travel between servers with your character and your animals. On unofficial servers, you often have better farm and XP rates, so the game is a little easier and less grindy. If you're playing on the Steam version, you can also play on modded unofficial servers. Mods add a lot to the gameplay. But there are also disadvantages. Official servers are not actively monitored and moderated, but the team intervenes when tickets are submitted into the report system. Since players rarely go out of their way to report things, there is a little bit of anarchy on the official servers. Unofficial servers have the disadvantage that they are run by private individuals. That means that they can ban you from the server at any time for no reason. It is also possible that these people will simply shut down the server at some point, so be aware of this when you join a server whose admin you do not know. Now about the game mode, PvE or PvP. PvP and PvE are extremely different, and depending on how much time and effort you want to put in, you can decide which game mode you choose. PvP is player versus player. Nothing you own is safe and can be attacked and destroyed at any time. In the best case, you have a lot of time or many friends with who you can play together, and there's always someone who can defend the base. On official servers, it's even more difficult because large tribes, that's what the clans are called in ARK, have formed there. And they often take over entire servers. As a new player who simply spawns and builds a small base, you have no chance of settling down. Joining these large tribes is often very difficult, and without good contacts and with friends in that tribe, you won't get into them. On unofficial PvP servers, the whole thing is not quite so strict, and solo PvP is no problem, especially thanks to boosted rates and to mods. PvE is player versus environment, and that means players play with each other and not against each other, at least in theory. On official servers, PvE is more of an economic simulation. You trade animals, organize boss fights together, argue and get along again. PvE is in no way more peaceful than PvP, quite the opposite actually. Because power games take place mainly in the global chats and through the appropriation of large areas on the map, so-called pillaring. In theory, pillaring is not allowed, but if nobody reports it, then no action is taken against it. It is way more peaceful on private PvE servers. Groups of friends often play together here and the atmosphere is way more relaxed. If you're a beginner, I would recommend this variant. The right choice of map. Before you even start playing, it is important that you decide which map you want to play on. Personally, I would recommend that you follow the story through the game, because the difficulty of the different maps varies greatly, and as a beginner you probably won't have enough unlocks or experience on the advanced maps to find your way around. Although this is often overlooked, ARK is a game where you unlock engrams map by map, which you then take to the next map. That means even if you play one of the later maps without having unlocked the map before, then you're missing unlocks that you might need. My recommendation is to start either with the island or one of the many community maps. Community maps are maps made by modders, and Wildcard, and those are the developers of ARK, later purchased those and published them as official DLCs. These maps are usually not related to the story and they are free of charge and are about the same difficulty level. Often they also come with animals that are not available on the other maps, and these are the community maps. Create a character. Either join a server or start a single player game with the map you would like to play. You will now be in the character screen. It is important to note that the character you create now will remain as you created it. You will not be able to change it visually once you have spawned into the game. Many players who have created strange looking characters in the very beginning because it looked funny get annoyed later. So be sure that you want to run around with this one in a few months or even in a few years. Where you spawn can determine how well you can find your way around in the game. If you are new to the game, I would always recommend spawning in the easy spawn areas. Later on, when you're more experienced, you can of course challenge yourself to survive in the harder areas. But before you get to that point, you have a lot to learn. So the easy areas are the ones you should stick with around for now. But it's important to note here that the easy areas are not all the same simplicity. They are the easy areas on that specific map. If the map itself is very challenging, then even the easy areas on that map might not be suitable for beginners. When you spawn into the map for the first time, I recommend that you first look around. What resources do you see around you? Which animals do you see? There's a simple tip for beginners when it comes to animals. If you do not know this animal and you don't know whether it is friendly or hostile, always act as if it was hostile and keep your distance. Then walk around and press E or the corresponding button on your controller, and with this you will pick up stones and pick bushes that are within your reach. What we need are the basic resources. If you also see trees, then hit them with left click, but be careful, you're losing life. But this is the only chance for us to get wood. What you need now is stone, thatch and wood, because this is how we build our first pickaxe. The pickaxe is important because it helps us to get other resources. Flint. With flint we can then build an axe and spears. With this we have our most important farming tools and a first possibility to defend ourselves if we have to. Unlocking engrams. To unlock engrams, go to your profile, click on this button and select the engrams that can be unlocked. You can recognize them by the fact that they are visible but grayed out. 2 requirements must be met for this. First, you must have the right level, and second, you must have enough engram points because each engram costs points when you unlock it. You do not have to unlock everything because you won't have enough points for each engram in the end anyway. If you play with a tribe, you can agree on who specializes in what. If you play solo, you can reset your points later and redistribute them. Which stats to level up? While playing normally, you will level up, and then you will have the choice to level up one of your stats. At first, it can be very confusing which stat to level up. At the beginning, I recommend to level up 3 stats that will help you to survive: weight, melee damage, and speed. And why these 3 stats, you ask? Weight, because you will have to farm a lot in the beginning and you do not have crates or storages yet, and therefore you carry a lot around with you. Melee, because higher melee damage means more profit from farming. That means you get more stone, wood or flint. And speed, because anything that can't catch you can't kill you. These stats have always been working out perfectly for me when I start on a new map. Talking about tools, something to keep in mind about tools is that it's a little different from other games, where tools are assigned to a specific material. In ARK you can use your pickaxe for stone, wood and harvesting animals, but you can do the same with the hatchet. At the beginning it seemed super strange to me to farm stone with an hatchet, but that's also part of the game. I will explain to you exactly what the tools do. The hatchet farms primary resources. This is stone for rocks, wood for trees, and hide or leather for animals. The pickaxe farms secondary and rare resources. For stone this is flint and more rarely metal. For trees this is thatch, and for animals it's meat or prime meat. Depending on what you need more, you can choose your tools for that job. Armor. Your first armor you can unlock with a cloth armor. Craft it as soon as you can. I do see some players thinking, oh, that little bit of cloth, I don't need this. But cloth armor reduces the damage you receive and it also protects you from the temperatures. Especially when there are heat and cold waves. You do not want to just sit that one out. For some parts of the cloth armor you will also need hide. To get the hide, you need to look for animals that you can hunt. Dodos or other small animals are very suitable early on. Note that the Dilophosaurus is aggressive and it will attack you even in groups. As a spear is your first weapon, you will use it to fight the animals. Make sure you make as many as possible, because the spear has this thing where it breaks constantly. You can do 2 attacks with a spear. The left click pokes and the right click throws. If you throw the spear and you kill the animal, you can pick it up again. But don't forget to not throw your last spear, because if you throw it and the animal doesn't die, you will be unarmed. And one thing is, do not attack the animals with your farm tools, because they hardly do any damage. Time to get your first base. If you are now equipped with weapons and tools, it's a good idea to build your first base. The location is not so important at first, because you will probably move later anyway. It is important, however, that you have a place where you can store your things, where you can log out, and where you can respawn when you die. You can unlock the thatch building pieces from level 4, but I would recommend for you to keep farming and leveling until you get to the wooden building pieces at level 11. Because they are more durable and cannot be destroyed by animals in a few bites. And they also last longer if you play on official servers. Your first base does not have to win a beauty contest. 3x2 foundations, 2 walls high, ceilings on the top are more than enough. I would refrain from building windows at the time, because only building closed walls keeps you safer. In our new little base, you need a fire, some boxes, and if you already can build them, like the big storages, then a smithy, a workbench, and mortar and pestle, and also a preserving bin later on. It is also important that you build some beds, at least one, but ideally several. So if you die several times, you can respawn without having to wait for the cooldown. You have probably noticed that we have not yet tamed a single animal. This is for the following reasons. If you want to tame an animal and you keep it, you need somewhere safe to put it when you log out, or even when you're just leaving your base. Tamed animals attract wild animals, and for your animals to survive, they need to be safe. This is why it is important to build a base first, even if it's only a small one, and then tame animals. I've seen so often players join a server, then tame many animals, forget the time, have to log out, and the next day they are not longer there. Therefore, pay attention to the order and save yourself some time and frustration, because retaming sucks. With the base you have now, you can safely house 1 or 2 dodos. However, you will soon need farm animals, as manual farming can take a long time and become inefficient. A temporary animal enclosure could now be made either out of fence foundations and walls or from spiked walls. I prefer the spiked walls because they also have a repelling effect. Taming animals is one of the main activities that you will do over and over again in ARK. Roughly speaking, animals can be divided into 4 different taming variants. Aggressive taming, where you have to knock out an animal and feed it. Passive taming, where you have to run after an animal and feed it. And then individual taming, where an animal has its very own unique taming style. And the last one is breeding animal, where the adult animal is untamable, but you can steal the eggs to raise the baby. Most of the early starter animals are either aggressive or passive taming, as there was only aggressive taming in the game at the very beginning, and we later got passive taming. The unique taming methods were only introduced in later maps. ARK is a game with a lot of depth, and many things are intentionally not explained. Players have spent many years figuring out how things work and collecting those informations, be it in the ARK wiki or in the companion app like Dododex. Don't be afraid to use these resources. That's what they are here for. Just because you know how to tame it doesn't mean you're good at it. So don't be afraid to research, and don't be afraid that it might be considered as cheating. There are some animals you should not forget when you start taming. It is important that you tame herbivores, and it's important that you tame carnivores, because herbivores cannot harvest animals and carnivores cannot farm berries. I recommend a raptor as your first carnivore. The saddles are available relatively early, level 18, and if you have several raptors, then you are relatively safe for the time being in the very first beginning. As a herbivore, I would recommend a parasaur. It farms berries moderately well, and it has a function that can track players and medium-sized dinos and scare them away. So it's a perfect first alarm system. Later you can tame a stegosaurus for farming, because it has been completely reworked a few weeks ago, and it now farms berries and wood, making it the perfect beginner dino. A doed and an Enki complete your farm animals. The doed farms stone and the Enki farms metal and flint. At some point when you have reached level 38, you will also unlock the saddle for the Pteranodon. This is not an early game tame, but it's available at the end of the early game, start of the mid game. Pteranodons are relatively fast and have little stamina and little weight, so you won't get far and you cannot take very much with you, but they are well suited for quick exploration flights as long as you take enough breaks and to tame other flyers. Breeding is a topic I will only talk briefly here because I already made beginner and advanced breeding guides, but you can mate many of your tamed animals and raise the offspring as your own. You can improve the stats, the level of the animals, get mutations, and get very, very strong animals. Think of taming as early game in the animal category and mutating as the late game. By the way, if you're a good breeder, you will have a much easier time getting into the popular PvP tribes because breeding is probably one of the most time-consuming and demanding activities in the game. If you want to learn more about it, then have a look at the breeding guides I link at the end of this video. Now at the end, I have some general words for all the beginner players. If you die early in the game, it's usually not worth running back to get your stuff back. Tools and armor can often be quickly recrafted, and it's not uncommon for beginner players to run naked back to their loot bag and then die over and over again just because they don't want to give up their stone pickaxe. Save that time. When you're fresh, experienced players will often offer you extremely powerful tools and dinos. While this is tempting, keep in mind that getting these animals is to play the game. If you take shortcuts like this, you will quickly lose interest in the game. It is also important that you learn how to do things on your own, so if you ever lose a dino, you will always know how to tame another one. Don't be dependent on other players. The next big thing is read the rules before joining a server. Different servers have different rules. Even if you see other players breaking the rules, it doesn't mean it's okay. If you get banned and you can no longer play on the servers with your account, in the worst case scenario, you have spent a lot of money to not be able to play with your friends. Although the ultimate goal in this game is to defeat the boss in the map in order to move on to the next map, you do not have to. Think about it a little bit like Minecraft. While you can defeat the Ender Dragon, you do not have to. You can also leave it alone and just enjoy your time. You can become a dodo farmer or just breed raptors. There are no rules here. Play the way you like it best. Now that you know the basics of the game which help you explore and master ARK Survival Evolved, remember that these are just the basic of the basics, and the game offers a lot more. But with this information, you should also be able to navigate your way through the game. I will link you helpful resources of information in the video description, and you can also watch my other videos where I explain different parts of the game more in detail. And if you still have a question, just leave them in the comments. And if you like this video, give the like button a boop on the snoot and subscribe to this channel, and you can see more tips and tricks from me. Until then, bye!